Marcus, when's the last time that you've been to Golden Corral?
Maybe a couple of years.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, what was your last experience with Golden Corral that you remember?
Anytime I go to Golden Corral, it's for one reason. 4 steaks.
I mean, that's a good reason. That is a very good reason.
Where else can you get 4 steaks?
Yeah, if I'm just in one of those moods where I want to eat 4 steaks and just heaps of that cheap mac and cheese. Like that, sometimes that is just such a comfort meal for me. Terrible mac and cheese and 4 steaks.
Well, we went there the other day while you were a busy man to get breakfast.
Delicious.
It was actually delicious. Tiny does have a law of Golden Corral, which is 1 out of every 3 times it'll be good, and the other 2 out of 3 are horrible. And the last 2 times he had been, it was bad. So
it's all about how you feel going in. You know, if you're in a pretty decent mood, and if like things are going pretty good in your life, it'll be good.
Well,
if you're just in one of those ruts, it may just reflect your inner experience.
we were excited and nervous,
Yeah.
and very skeptical because we knew what was coming. And then the whole time we're eating there, we're all laughing our asses off and joking about what this is going to do to us and what we've done to ourselves. So much so that the waitress behind us, she asked if we were okay.
Yes.
we're like, no, we're not. Look at what we've done.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they can expect you just to be okay at the Golden Corral. Like the rush that you would get from that amount of food. Because my wife was not there with us, but she was curious as to why I was so excited to go to Golden Corral. And I said, well, I've listed everything that I ate. So here we go. Hash brown casserole, deep fried bacon, scrambled eggs, biscuit and gravy, and spicy country sausage. On the second plate, there was banana nut bread French toast with normal French toast with a Belgian waffle that had cheesecake filling with fresh fruit on top of it, chocolate chip pancakes. And then, to finish it all off, I had sawmill gravy atop Texas toast and a heaping helping of bread pudding.
Don't forget the breakfast pizza that you looked at and said, this will be good.
And
Tiny and I both steered far
Yes,
away
we
from
did.
it because we saw it.
I committed to the idea that if I'm here for a reason, and I was fated to get the last piece of breakfast pizza with scrambled eggs and sausage gravy on it with mozzarella cheese. Now, let me tell you, folks, I had a bite of it. That's all you get.
That's enough. I think my favorite part was the mysterious stranger sitting in the chair by the bathrooms. I don't know if he was there to sell me trinkets along my adventure or to send me on a side quest. I didn't venture over to the man because he scared me a little bit, but he intrigued me almost as much.
At the very end, Tiny was like, I saw a cinnamon roll, but then I heard a ringing in my ears, so I decided not to get it.
Yeah, that was an indicator from my body that you don't really want that, bro.
And before that, he felt a locking mechanism go in to his stomach and just make kind of a kind of feeling. And so 2 of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse that is Golden Corral arrived. And we never heard the bells. And the wet thing, something wet, is the 4th of those horsemen.
Well,
so we never
all I
got
know
there.
is the horsemen, they exited me when I got roughly to my sister's work, which is a 5-minute drive from the establishment.
That is the epitome of why Golden Corral is good when you can use the gravy options, because for those who don't like gravies of any kind, they got to resort to using the nacho cheese sauce to substitute. And I'll tell you, they ought to call it liquid lubrication, like, for your food, because as soon as it went in, it was ready to shoot out, and he had to get somewhere so quick to disrobe.
Yeah, it was a shirt off. It was a shirt off endeavor. See, where I messed up was I got inspired in the line to make what I can only call a blob. There was a waffle on the bottom covered in a hash brown casserole, deep fried bacon, 2 pieces of chicken fried country steak, spicy Cajun sausage, and these cheesy potato things with jalapenos on the top. And boy, it was real good
We all
until it really wasn't.
we all left like shaking, like our bodies were shaking, and not from the cold, like we had done something like unrecognizable to our insides.
There was a demon inside of all of us.
It inspired a poem in me. Honestly, it inspired a poem in me, and it was.
Please share with us.
It's simple. It is meat sweats, sweet sweats, sugar checked, feet left.
Is that a haiku?
So as you can tell, this episode brought to you by Golden Corral.
It's the best buffet in the USA.
Hey everybody, I'm Dane Holland.
I'm Austin Shazam Pfeiffer.
I'm Marcus. I'm Electric Man.
And I'm Austin Tiny Zen.
And this is Nerded Through the Grapevine, the podcast where four best friends gather weekly to talk about our favorite parts of past, present, and future nerd culture. And we haven't done something in a while. And Austin was struck by inspiration, I would say, to say the least.
Absolutely. Reimagined movies.
Reimagine movies. Reimagine.
So that is one of my favorite things that we've done on here. I love going to that, and I love having that as something that we can have fun with. But to narrow down the direction, I kind of have that already pre-planned. And I want it to be kind of a dystopic future where Barney, the dinosaur from our imaginations, has grown too tall and too strong that he can no longer be contained. So I want to figure out what other kind of things can go along with it.
Well, I know that height and that the large size of himself is going to get to his head at some point, because we're going to go from being almost the size of Barney and his friends to subjects.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's naturally the order of things as you grow larger, as the humanity of things so much smaller than you starts to fade away.
Yeah, he's just absorbing all of it. So
Right.
I can imagine instead of him being like, "Hiya, kids," it'd be more like, like that classic,
Like
that classic Godzilla scream.
Well, the larger he gets, the more people start to believe in him, which as well just grows his size.
Absolutely, he becomes more powerful the more you believe in him.
Yeah.
Because he's literally just a dinosaur from our imagination.
Yeah.
See, I like that. I like that he's just in everyone's imagination. That he's somehow some sort of alien Lovecraftian like being that's unknowable and amoral. But then he
Sorry, just Barney and amoral just go together so well for me.
and that he's like invading, the children first, and so that's the preschool stuff, and he's got his sidekick. He's one of those lizard people that the conspiracy theorists believe in. He's one of them.
Based on the descriptions that have already been given, he's like the child version of Freddy Krueger, right? Because he's in your imagination. So
Well, he is just in your imagination.
For your sleep, he's always there.
It's like a waking nightmare.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
I mean, that's where Cthulhu comes to you, right?
Yeah,
in your dreams.
exactly.
And so, but is that only where he exists?
Well, see, I feel like he gets
Barney's one of those, like I said, cosmic horror entities.
Yeah, exactly. So he starts off real nice, and he's doing the kid thing, singing them songs, and being all around good guy. And then he just snaps one day. He wakes up and he's like, "I'm a fucking T-Rex. What am I doing? I can't fold pillowcases. I can't even scratch my ass properly." And then the more he thinks about what he can't do with his short, stubbly arms, the more enraged he becomes. And people start to believe in him more, so he gets larger and larger, and so does his rage, until he wipes off the makeup that makes him child-friendly, and you see just this purple, just death monster.
And like the natural oils of his scales start to leak out,
And he's-
smell really bad.
And he's able to keep it all under wraps and all hidden until the levee breaks. One day, Billy didn't clean up during the cleanup song.
No, he did not.
Billy, It's everybody do your share.
And I feel like as Barney is growing in this waking nightmare of people, like you said, it starts off with the children, like we've seen on TV, but he's starting to grow into the minds of those slightly older, maybe the teacher of the children at the school that he's been a part of for so long. And it starts to spread one by one. And the theme song, the Barney theme song we all know and love, surely it will transform with him, because the only people that hear that song are the ones experiencing Barney.
Yeah.
So I think he, in his shape and demeanor, is directly related to his theme song that you do hear in your head when you're around him.
You like set the scene, and you've got this mom and her 2 children sitting at the table just trying to enjoy some breakfast. And all of a sudden, one of the pieces of the cereal falls onto the floor. And the small child looks at the other small child that dropped the cereal piece. And then they hear this. Oh no, Jessica! Jessica, pick the piece of cereal up right now! Hurry! Pick it up!
Mommy, I can't move. I'm so scared, Mommy.
You heard what happened to Billy! You know what happened to Billy when he didn't clean up!
And just from me to you, won't you say you love me?
It's too late! It's too late! I can hear him! I can hear him in my head! I love you kids! I love you kids so much! I'm so sorry!
I wish we had a Roomba.
And scene. I see it in my head.
I cannot wait to actually hear what that nonsense sounds like, because it's probably going to be nightmarish. I hope that somebody's listening to this podcast at night while they're, supposed to be chilling, podcast time, and all of a sudden they're freaked out in a Barney scenario that we've created. That would make me so happy.
This is how the nightmare begins. Like we make it up and ha, funny, but people falling asleep listening to podcasts, all of a sudden he's there and he's real and it spreads.
So that's what I was thinking.
It becomes reality.
That version of Barney that is perceivable by humans is only affecting people who have him on in their houses and things. So people who are exposed to him on the screen, and then eventually, you get to go visit the set. Because, I don't know. Do y'all remember being in freaking preschool and, they would have, somebody dress up as Barney and he would, come to your preschool?
Yeah, I've seen a Barney. It might have been, probably preschool.
Yeah, something like that. At least I have that childhood memory.
Yeah.
So, that's just how it happens. He invades you from your children, and then he eventually takes over your mind, too.
Right. Which is a great way to get in, because, kids are obsessed with Barney. I was obsessed with Barney.
Hold on. So how many of us have actually seen in person a Barney?
I've seen a Barney.
In person?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've seen a Barney toy.
Half of them have been they're already infiltrated. Half of them are already infiltrated. Tony, it's just you and me.
Yeah.
We are
It's you and me.
safe.
Now, I met a Power Ranger during the Fox Kids Club, but not Barney.
I haven't met any childhood thing.
Maybe they'll remember me and help
I
fight.
did see a Ronald McDonald statue outside of a McDonald's one time.
Was he sitting with his legs crossed?
He
and you could
was,
get your
and
picture
I sat
taken
in
with
his
him?
lap, and it was very hard.
Well, what we just experienced was a dystopic version of a beloved character. And I like the idea of dystopia and dystopic things in media, because there's been a lot of them, a whole bunch of them. And we were talking, when we were planning what we want to talk about for the podcast, dystopic settings and also post-apocalyptic settings. A lot of times they somehow coincide with one another, because both of them kind of pop into your head whenever you think of one or the other. But I looked up and tried to be able to find the exact difference between the two. So as we're talking about all this stuff, sometimes those are going to blend together. But I think we'll be able, just from this kind of definition like thing, to be able to tell while we're talking about things if it would be more of a dystopia or more of a post-apocalypse. So the difference between the two is, most noticeably, while dystopian fiction often explores social or political struggle, society is still operating and has not yet collapsed, although it might be on the brink of it. And in apocalyptic fiction, the focus is less on society and more about the characters or man versus nature conflict. So if you can kind of think in your head while thinking of, all the examples and stuff of dystopic settings in film and games and whatever, that's kind of the difference, like, between the two, is that there's still some kind of social structure in dystopia.
So like 2022 would be dystopia.
Yes. Yeah, we have not reached post-apocalyptic
Right,
yet.
right. So everything was shut down. People wasn't leaving their homes.
Right.
Yeah, we were still functioning pretty much.
That was euphoria for me, though. That was a utopia, not a dystopic. Not a dystopia, because I got to stay at home on my computer all
That's
day.
just the thing, isn't it? Everybody has that idea of utopia in their head, but that often for other people would be a dystopia.
Right.
Like, if enforced, that's the definition of a dystopia, is someone else's utopia.
I mean, think about it. You're just hearing the background TV in a some kind of sci-fi flick. The stay-at-home command is still in effect. Do not leave your homes. Do not exit without proper permission and proper clothing. And just having all that stuff going on. But hey, guess what? It happened.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's when I was in the living room. If you hear that kind of thing, I'm going, yay!
Don't leave the house. I'm gonna play Animal Crossing.
Yeah, from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed.
But yeah, that's one of those things about dystopian, is it's kind of totalitarian, like, a lot of times that we see it, rather than, like, I don't know, I guess you could say like something like Mad Max is dystopian, but is that more
That's more
post-apocalyptic, or like
post-apocalyptic.
both?
It's a mixture of both, I think.
Right,
Because
yeah.
there is some type of social structure, because there
Right.
are those that are in charge of, like, hoarding water and
Right.
stuff. So
But I think dystopian is more like the government's eyes are on you at all times. Like, you have to be careful with what you think and say and how you act, because you will be found out and you will be punished severely.
That's the Big Brother overarching kind of
Yes.
umbrella thing with that.
Yes.
And whenever I was looking up examples, I noticed there were a few different ones that at least I have seen, because there was a lot on these lists that I looked up that I haven't seen before, but of the ones I've seen, the main kind of focuses I noticed on a few of them were they were either technology based. So technology has either gotten to a certain point, like with AI or something like that, to where humanity is starting to devolve, like, because technology is taking over. And there's also the politically based ones, which are, I think, the main focus of many of them. And then
1984.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the like example
yeah.
of it. And then the Big Brother kind of fits in with that as well. Most of them fit in with the political nature of them. But then you've got something like Planet of the Apes and like District 9, and those are more like humanity's not at the top of the food chain anymore. So then it causes a dystopia for humans, but for the other beings that are involved, it's not a dystopia for them. But as the viewer, you as a human, you're watching it from their perspective. So it is a dystopian
Right. Well,
setting.
and technically Star Wars is dystopian too, when it starts with the Empire kind of dominating everybody. And
True.
Yeah.
Got to
Yeah.
watch what you say at all times. You don't want to.
Can't be one of them Jedi.
No.
You'll be punished severely for being a Jedi, or having the wrong religion.
I've got the death penalty in 12 different star systems. I escaped Order 66. Yeah. Sweet.
Dead.
Death.
And like I think dystopic settings are going to always be more popular in media than utopic settings, because the yearning for a dystopic setting in a story can come from both sides. Either everything's going great for you and everything's cool beans, so you want to see something on the opposite side. You want to see the gritty, the like, how does everything go wrong? You kind of want the opposite of what you've got as far as what you're consuming media wise. But then there's also if everything's kind of going to shit for you and you're like, everything's down and around you and you see all these things becoming real, you want to see something worse than what you've got going on. So it's like, well, watching this other dystopic setting, like it's so much worse than what I've got it. So maybe it's not so bad. So I feel like on both sides of that coin, you're wanting that setting to be part of what you're viewing. I don't know if that's like a common thought on that, but that was just something I was thinking because I can't think of many utopic stories. Like, because it always ends up being dystopic for
right,
most
and that's
of
a
the
trope.
people.
That's a trope. It's like a fake utopia. Like on the surface, it seems like, oh my gosh, it's perfect. But then once you get to stay and seeing what's going on, you start to see all the cracks and what's really going on behind it all.
Kind of like The Giver.
Yeah,
Because they try to make everything just kind of uniform and gloss it over, make everybody the same. You get assigned your job, you get this, you get that, and then the new child who's picked to be the next giver gets to be the one to actually see the world how it is, doesn't take the medication that dulls everything. And then he sees colors and he experiences pain and suffering and all the memories of the society that's been lost.
yeah.
I think there's a video game called We Happy Few that my girlfriend Carly's been playing, and that sounds like that. I mean, I bet that is where they got the idea of it, because it is society's just kind of functioning. Everybody's so happy. They're taking their happy pills. But as soon as your character doesn't do that, all of a sudden you start seeing the reality of what's going on around you, and everything that utopia is gone. So, but like a utopic setting and a utopic story would be kind of boring, right? I mean, if everything is, because that's the idea of that, is everything's perfect, like for everyone involved, every single thing.
In the scenario of The Handmaid's Tale, you have a country that has dedicated their entire life function to going into this super, male-dominated, female-subjugated sex slave for the benefit of the birth rate rising. That's their utopia that they've created.
Yeah.
They have created their utopic society that would be acceptable in what they believe in the eyes of God, so that he would purify the human body again to make them able to have children. Because in this world, the birth rate has plummeted. Nations are not having children anymore. So it's almost like, the Children of Men scenario, where you've got this, dystopic future to where nobody's reproducing anymore. The last generations of humans are just going to die, and this one woman is pregnant, and she's having to be protected. Very, that kind of an idea. But in this one, it follows a girl named June who gets abducted. Her child gets abducted. Her husband is taken from her, and she's taken and forced into sex slavery for this country called Gilead. Now, to her, an American who was just out on a hike with her kid and her husband and gets abducted, this is now a dystopic hellscape for her, because this was not the world that existed just mere years ago. They formed very quickly and radicalized in Gilead. So, and it's got seasons upon seasons of just like, what the hell is happening? And I think that it is a great example of how you've got just different concepts of your euphoria and your dystopia. It just
Utopia.
Yeah, utopia. Well, yeah.
I said euphoria earlier. They're very close words.
Utopia. Yeah, utopia and dystopia. I mean, they're right there in the same show, just depending like on the eye of the beholder kind of deal. Yeah. And to everybody else in the world, they're absolute just dog shit. Like, they hate Gilead. And then some of the Gilead's last actions they took in this last season, other countries in the world started accepting them and saying that they are a world power, like North Korea and Russia and then China. And
those are dystopias.
And they were pretty much like, oh, Gilead, you're doing this? Props to you, bro. Welcome to the club. Welcome to the Axis.
And they're going to, like, in creating that show, and that it's based on a book, you're going to be following the person that's in the middle of the shit. Like, it's not going to be written from the point of view of the elite and never hearing about or seeing all the shit that's going on, because then it wouldn't even be a story.
Yeah.
Like, there'd be nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, you can always have those privileged characters.
Yeah.
But yeah, the theme of the story is that kind of huge gap in inequality. I mean, I remember watching I forget the name of the show, but it had the guy that played Dracula. Anyway,
Keanu Reeves?
No. Anyway, it was this cool story. It was like this serial killer kind of story, but like back in like the early 1900s. and they depict like this really vast gap in inequality or whatever, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like you got your dirt poor, literally starving in a hovel, and then you've got your ultra rich going to these fancy dinner parties and stuff. So you've got both of those worlds, and so that contrast, I think, could help to tell a good dystopian story.
Oh yeah, seeing it from both the sides of the people, like because the Hunger Games is one that's pretty recent,
Popular.
Yeah.
and popular. Like a lot of people like have seen or read it, and
I've done both.
they've done both. Oh, Tiny, you're the twofer.
I've done
Not
both.
me. And the way they show you both of those worlds on screen, at least, is I think brilliant because of all the colors and all the fancy garb and everything. Like I think it's a perfect example of here's what the haves and the have-nots are dealing with, and that's something that you see, and that right there is a trope, like the have and the have-nots. Like you see you don't see much in the middle, I think, between those.
Yeah.
Because most of the time it's all or nothing.
Yeah, well, just the contrast.
Yeah. And one that I saw not too long ago was Snowpiercer. I don't know if any of you guys seen Snowpiercer
I've seen
before.
the movie. I've not seen the show.
Roach jerky.
Gross. Yes.
It wasn't
that was
really
definitely-
jerky. It was more Jello.
Yeah, roach jello.
Oh, I've seen like 3 different
It was all
versions of
flippy-floppy.
Snowpiercer.
Yeah, there's a few different ones.
There's been an older movie, then there was another movie, and then there's a show.
There's a second movie?
Yeah, there's 2.
I only know the one.
I saw the one. Was it Chris Evans?
Yeah.
Yeah, Chris Evans. That's the one that I'd seen.
The Alienist. That's the one I was thinking of. Anyway, go ahead.
A movie?
No,
Or
it was a TV show.
Or a TV show. Oh, The Alienist. This one.
Yeah.
Okay. But in Snowpiercer, there's it's a global warming disaster had happened. Like they tried their last ditch efforts to fix it, but everything collapsed, and all of humanity seemingly is existing on this one train that's in perpetual motion. Like it's always moving, and the cars on the train, like closer to the engine, is where the rich are, and as you move cars backwards, your social standing drops, like to the point where you're following the ones in the back car, and it's just awful, like all piled floor to ceiling on their bunks and just starving. And then they have an uprising and try to work their way to the front, and eventually you do get to where you meet the person that's kind of in charge of this train and this whole society that they created. And you see and then another trope comes along to where the person that's in the bottom of this social class, the one that's in the middle of the dystopic shit, they are almost offered a spot in higher standing. Like, okay, you've been included and involving in all this shit. Do you want to be a part of, like, where we are, the utopia, essentially? And most of the time, that's whenever the main character in your story, or one of the main characters, turns that down and then destroys the system.
It's like we got to distribute this a little bit better.
Right. It's the
than we have
formula.
been.
It's the trope similar to the Matrix, you're at the bottom of everything, but really all the things that you have been working towards throughout this whole thing to overcome where you are were used as a tool, as a mechanism. It's happened multiple times before you.
Right.
You're not the only one, but you don't realize that. And then you're offered that chance. Yeah.
I think it's even more interesting in a story if one of them does take that, because a lot of times it's not the main character,
right,
but it could be someone before them. Like you said, like others have tried this in the past, and maybe a lot of them have taken that standing. It makes me think of Squid Game. I don't know if you guys have all watched Squid Game or not.
I tapped out around episode 5 or 6.
Me too. Yeah.
Really? Yeah, I finished it.
I've seen it, yeah.
I went hard on it. It was good. But that was a situation to where everyone that's just struggling through life thrown into this game that these elites have put on for their own pleasure, and you get to gain money by killing other people in these games, by winning these games.
Surviving.
Yeah, it's survival, and you signed up for it.
Yeah.
They even have a situation where
they can stop the game.
They can stop the game. If the majority of the people decide this needs to end, then it'll end. But that just can't happen, because even if they hate it and they cannot stand the fact that they're having to kill these people to advance in their lives and try to get this money, they still don't stop the games. Like, they still continue. And it's the twist at the end of it is really interesting, like what was going on within it. Since you guys haven't finished it, it would be really hard to, I think, get back into it since you like.
I don't ever plan on returning.
Right.
Lay it on me, Flapjack.
Just do it.
No. Well, there's other people that haven't.
We got a fart button.
Okay, I'm about to spoil Squid Game. Here comes the spoiler fart. The old man, remember the old man that the main character is trying to protect in the games, like he kind of befriends and stuff. He is the one that actually is in charge of Squid Game.
Makes
sense. He's the one above it all. And the main character basically like almost gets to, I'm trying to remember if he gets that opportunity to take over the whole Squid Game. I can't remember that part of it, but I think that might have been a part of it. But anyway, yeah, that was the big twist.
Well, that would have made me angry.
Why angry?
Because you're feeling bad for the old man and also really excited for him persevering.
You still kind of do at the end, I think.
Yeah, you still
kind of do feel for him, but it's obviously much more, he's a villain still, though.
It messes with the emotion of it all because you see the chaos and destruction and death that this thing has caused, but they're able to portray him in a way that you still feel a little bit, not justifying what he's done, but can kind of see why he made the decisions he made.
Yeah.
Circling back to the Matrix, they had an individual in there who knew about what the Matrix function was, what they were using humans for, and they unplugged from that. But they hated life so much outside of what the Matrix created that they wanted to plug back in, and they were willing to do anything to be able to do that. I think it was his name, Cypher?
Yes.
Yeah, he sabotaged a bunch of stuff for the Smiths and or agents actually, and they were going to plug him back in to the Matrix for that. He's willing to actually risk human life to go back to the simulation because it's that much better than what actual life is to him. Mm-hmm. So you get your both like. I don't know. It lets you see both sides of the coin really there because it can go both ways. You know, it's going to be like a rescuing of somebody and this enlightening of like, this was all just a simulation. Like it really didn't all matter. It was just all fake to take me back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I like about The Matrix, despite how goofy some of the movies may have gotten. Is just that it's like this pursuit of truth. Like I want to live in the real world, no matter how hard that is. Like, I don't know. That's just a cool aspect of it, I think.
Yeah. Are you willing to accept this imaginary world that you can be engulfed in and live out your days without the struggle of reality, which is, I mean, it's how a lot of us escape within games and movies and shows and books. We have that escape, but we unplug. Like you unplug at some point and you come back to reality.
Unfortunately.
Right. But I think if you were forced into that, like you would get to a point to where maybe you do want the reality back again. I don't know. Like I probably wouldn't if I was in my favorite setting, but
yeah.
like,
well,
I
mean,
there were dragons
faced with that choice that they're faced with in the Matrix. I can't say that I would make that heroic choice.
Oh, no.
I can't say that.
No.
But maybe I would because I do make it in my life right now, and I don't play all that many video games, and I go do real stuff, but I want to. I want to plug in sometimes.
But if you have flying machines that want to harvest you for things, either that or play a video game forever.
Yeah,
I'm probably going to want the video game forever.
Well, that's kind of, there's this trope, like, because we were talking about earlier, like, how people, or were we talking earlier, because, I mean, dystopia, it would be hard to maintain a dystopia or a utopia, whichever way you want to look at it, because it's really the same thing.
Yes.
But, because people are going to be fighting you at every aspect. Like, you've got to always be looking over your shoulder as the leader of a utopia. I mean, people are not just going to line up to be sheep to the slaughter. Arcane was also another one that shows that that kind of dichotomy of haves and have-nots.
So good.
But I lost my place.
You were talking about a trope?
Oh, well, how it's like, hard to maintain these dystopias, like
they will crumble. Like
probably.
Yeah, what's the tipping point that's gonna you make everything just fall apart.
Right. Well, we just think of Gilead. You know, like there's people fighting it, like actively fighting it, and doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
If I mean, I've never seen the show, but I assume that they have some success.
Yeah,
at least.
I mean, it does give you a view into every part of the hierarchy. Like you do get to see everything going on from the eyes, who are like the spies that work, you know, in the shadows. You get to see a little bit of what they do. Yeah, you get to see what the commanders and the wives do. The married couples of Gilead, the ones that are the rich and powerful that run the whole biz. And even down to like one of the creators of it, a guy named Joseph Lawrence, who is working from the inside, hating his life the entire time because the only way he could get his movement done to actually try to get, like, scientifically to change things enough to where they could get, you know, the birth rate back up, because he knew exactly what they needed, but he had to use a bunch of religious zealots to get there. Mm-hmm. And he is hating his life the entire time. He wanted to make a clean living water source, and he wanted, you know, good food and shelter and all this stuff available for people. That's what he wanted. He didn't want the rest of this that you brought into it.
Right.
But he has to go along with it, otherwise they will kill him.
Mm-hmm. But that's what I'm saying. Like, even though like I want to make my utopia, people are going to fight me at all levels.
Or change it into something that it's not supposed to be.
Right.
And then it becomes your dystopia in your utopia at the same time.
I guess that's where I was going. Tiny, don't lose your thought. But I was going down this road to where, like, okay, then how do you, like, make the people behave in a dystopia? And the Matrix obviously has, like, completely, like, overtakes the human mind. Like, you don't even have to find a loophole in their mind. You just completely overtake it and portray a false reality. But then there's, like, the government drug programs and stuff. Like, I don't know. I'm just interested in that. Like, how do these dystopian societies that we see in stories, like, how do they manage to keep the people subjugated?
Mm-hmm.
Reminds me of the Lego movie.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
As we're talking, I'm starting to realize things that I've seen and partaken in that falls under this umbrella that I just never really associated with it before. One of my favorite podcasts, it's a narrative podcast. It's called the Leviathan Chronicles.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, it falls under that umbrella of dystopia, but it's almost like it's hidden because it follows a society of immortals. You know, they're the haves. They're in the Marianas Trench. They've got their own underwater city, but there's another group that's trying to tear that apart, and you're in this almost Civil War or post-Civil War kind of era between that people group, and it follows this lady, McKellen Orso. She's like a biochemist, and she has no idea about any of it. Well, come to find out, she's a clone of the leader of the Immortals. I mean, that's kind of a spoiler, but it's
Yeah.
it's very early on. It's
Yeah.
like episode 1 or 2,
Okay.
so it doesn't give anything away. And it just follows her learning who she is and kind of where she comes from, and her bouncing between the two different groups, and the two different groups learning more about their groups, how they're both messed up and neither one of them's right, and how that plays in and amongst normal human society.
Well, to combine both of those thoughts of, like, how is everyone subjugated? Like, how are these dystopias maintained?
Right, because I'm just basically trying to figure out how Barney is keeping us at bay. Go ahead.
Right. Well, he's invaded our minds. Like,
Yeah.
he's taken over, like, in there. But, like, with immortals, like, let's say the immortals are the haves in these stories. Like, their lifespans, like, they can just use eternity as their way of subjugating people. Like, they can withstand time. Like, there's nothing anyone else can do about that.
There's another thought, but I don't want to say because it gives it away. It's in season 2.
But it's a good show. That's what you're
Yes,
saying.
it's very
It's a
good. You
show.
should all check it out. Very high quality. There's sound effects and a full cast. It's awesome.
Like with we mentioned earlier, 1984, like, being such a just foundation for this type of story.
It's almost the epitome of
It
this
is.
kind
Like,
of
so
story.
many of them base themselves after 1984.
Or epitome, if you're trying to read quickly.
Every single time, every time I see the word epitome, epitome is in my head, and I go, "You stupid idiot!"
You're like,
and then I fix it.
You're just trying to speed read through something, and the epitome.
No, that's not a word.
Epitome, shit!
It's better than epitaph. That doesn't even sound like a real word. I'm mispronouncing it every time, but I'm not.
You're not. You're doing the real thing. In 1984, the way they do this is through the ministries that they have within it, which is the government
Ministry
agencies
of
they've
Truth.
set up.
Yeah.
The Ministry of Truth, which creates lies and destroys truths of history and replaces them with their own like truths in quotes. The Ministry of Peace, they're in charge of war, and then the Ministry of Love, they're there to torture people, as well as the Ministry of Plenty, which they're like starvation is pretty much what they're all about. Mm-hmm. So it's you have the name of the good thing that people see the name and they will follow that because you're told it's good and no one looks into why it's heinous.
Yeah.
And it's all, and because the thought police, which is also something in that, which they will hunt you down if you're thinking about going against the society that they've created. And that story, if you've never read 1984, I've never watched the movie, but the book is so good. And if you've ever been considering reading it, read it, because you see where a ton of at least political dystopias that happen afterwards, where they derived a bunch of their ideas from.
Yeah, I mean, it's called the Ministry of Truth. How could you be against it?
Yeah.
You know?
But then there's even like Idiocracy, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And that's just like a really comedic take on it. It's like America is this dumbed down, just idiocracy. I mean, that's just a perfectly titled thing.
Stupidity has outgrown intelligence to where they have overtaken everything. And I can't remember how far in the future, like 500 years.
It was a pretty
in the
good
future
chunk.
or
I
something.
think, probably about 500.
We're gaining on it pretty quick.
Yeah,
I was about to say we're balls deep in it. We're not gaining on it.
balls
We're
deep.
there.
That's like, it's so funny just how for a while now people have been able to go, this happened in Idiocracy. Like, we need to be using this as a don't go there. Please don't go there. Please fix it.
I mean,
as soon as they start feeding,
wasn't the president literally like a wrestler?
Yeah, professional
that
wrestler.
turned porn star.
Yeah.
That turned president.
played by Terry Crews. Terry Crews.
Love
Terry
Crews.
needs his nibs.
Oh, dude. I mean, like literally.
Yeah. And
It's like
My favorite part about that entire thing is just the absolute, just how stupid it all is, but how easily accepted that it all just washes over the entirety of the masses.
Yeah.
Like, you've got these two smart people that are of average intelligence to those that are the target audience. You know, we're all just, we're that level of intelligence. Yeah. We're that smart. They're not very smart. And there are the world-class brains that say you don't need to feed plants energy drink because it's got electrolytes and that's what plants crave.
oh yeah, they're too stupid to know how awful everything is around them. It's the epitome of ignorance is bliss. Like that's the whole idea in that. And the comedy nature of that, as I was looking up, a bunch of examples that I had seen, because, trying to rack my brain without seeing lists is almost impossible for me. But comedy isn't really something it doesn't outweigh the serious nature of most dystopic media.
Yeah.
Because, like, how do you turn this awful thing that humanity is experiencing into something that you can all laugh about?
I don't know. You didn't see the last Matrix movie.
I did. Well, I saw some of it with you, and that was laughable.
It was
but
laughable.
in a different way.
Pitiful.
Well, and I really
I
like.
saw 1 to 5 minutes of it. Does that count as me seeing it?
All you needed to see.
I really
Perfect.
like Don't Look Up.
Yes,
too. I don't know if y'all seen that with
Oh,
Leo and Jennifer Lawrence.
It was so
Oh my
good.
God.
Timothy Chalamet.
I have nightmares about that kind of shit now because of that movie. Thinking about just how that this is happening. Like the Leo's character and the entire time is literally like borderline having a stroke with his blood pressure through the roof. Just like, hey, yeah, well, I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for the attention that you're paying to me and everything else like that. Thanks a lot. But this is imminent threat. Like, we could all die. Well, we don't want to think negative around here. We just want to make sure that everybody's having a good time. That could just miss us. It could just change course, couldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, like I did a really good job at portraying like how our modern media manipulates us. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And who was the main character modeled after? Because I don't know if it was Musk or if it was.
You mean the villain?
Yeah,
The villain?
Yeah, the
pretty
main
much.
villain.
I think so. Or just his type.
Yeah,
The
or
Bezos.
the crazy billionaire type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that movie did a great job of the mixing of humor and catastrophic thought of this is horror. Like, this is a horror movie, but at the same time, they're doing a really good job with the humor in it.
Tiny likes those kind of movies.
Did that Bird Bag movie fall under this category?
Oh, the Bird Box.
Whatever
That would
it
be
is,
post.
with
I would say
Sandra
that's
Bullock,
like that's more alien
that
invasion.
Stupid ass
That's-
ending.
That was awful.
Terrible
I
movie.
think that has
It
more
sucks.
alien invasion tropes, in my opinion. I don't
Yeah,
know.
because that one does
Or zombie almost.
but they still have like their, like, because they go and join like a society that's, that's been made.
But it's more
I think it's on its way
post-apocalyptic.
to a post-apocalyptic, right? Like, there's an apocalyptic event causing a dystopia that will eventually become post-apocalyptic, right? Is that or
Yeah, I mean-
invasion? This is that weird, like,
Yeah, it's
I
one
think
of them,
it's
like,
right
gray
there on the
areas.
edge. It's post-apocalyptic story
Yeah.
because you get the apocalypse right at the freaking beginning of the story.
Well, it's like zombies. You don't
Exactly.
You don't know
Yeah.
what point you're going to fall, whether it's going to be in the post-apocalyptic stage of this zombie thing, or if it's going to be in just where it gets flared up in the zombie thing, to where you're living in this things are start to crumble around you kind of area. Because you go into like a zombie movie like The Crazies. It was an older, back in the kind of 2000s, maybe 2000 teens. You get this little small town of people that start having this outbreak of like a rage style virus to where they become zombies and they're doing all this weird shit, and it's crazy. Okay, that's like the beginning stages. Things are starting to crumble a little bit, but it's an isolated event. But then you get other ones like you'll hop into some Resident Evil, and most of the time you're going to be knee deep in it, and you're going to be having to deal with what it's like in this world that you're now having to fight for your survival from all these zombies around you. And then, you've got the other one that develops from the beginning of it on into it, kind of like The Walking Dead, to where you've got, just this guy who's a sheriff, and then next thing you know, he wakes up in a hospital because something bad's happened, and he can't get out of this exit that he's supposed to be able to get out of because it says don't go outside. The dead are there. It's zombies. They cover a lot of stuff. Even Brad Pitt was in a good zombie.
I don't know. Warm Bodies was really good.
That was a good love story. That was a
It was
love
talking
story.
about zombies, but it had that in there too.
Oh,
It
jeez.
was good.
Yeah.
It was good.
zombies are like, that's the post-apocalyptic side of it, or pre-apocalyptic, because it's weird because it depends on the timing, right? I mean, there's the pre-apocalyptic, and then the during the apocalyptic, and then the post. Like the zombie thing, it starts off as everything's normal, and then an illness breaks out or something. So you've got the pre, the during, and then the post, like to whenever there's only a few survivors and they're all trying to find societies together.
What? Tiny, you're a genius.
I am.
You're a genius.
Thank you.
Yay!
Warm Bodies is post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it is.
Post?
Yes.
So the post-apocalypse happened and then society reformed?
Because the zombies that are remaining from the society collapsing and it being the apocalypse of the zombies start to slowly be able to reanimate, and through this expression that they can find love and find something that's sparking their life back into them, they can have their heartbeat start back up again, and they start becoming warm bodies.
Post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, it's a new genre.
It's a
good.
new genre. It was so cute.
Well, they say that any genre eventually will parody itself. Like when a genre has kind of run its course, like you start to see the self-criticizing, like like the movies that criticize their own genre.
Like Scary Movie.
Like,
Oh my God.
Well, people say that we're in the superhero phase of that, like because you've got The Boys and you've got these things where we're subverting the genre
I mean,
itself.
we've
So it's like
been there for a while though, because we had Watchmen.
true, but I guess that was arguably not as successful. I don't know. It was really successful, wasn't it? I don't know.
But it wasn't
didn't make near
successful
as
in the
enough.
theater.
Like, yeah.
It was more of a success after, when people got a chance to think about it.
Right.
Yeah, it was at the beginning stages of kind of the superhero boom, but I think with around, Iron Man 1 and then that whole first phase, like that was because if you look at all the superhero movies ever made, around then till now has been this giant chunk of it's just so saturated.
Yeah.
And you start making things like The Boys, which all of a sudden people are like, I like this more than the ones we've been getting.
Yeah,
But-
it's just a more realistic kind of take on it.
Right. But would it be as successful if it weren't kind of where they've introduced it? Because it was already in the comics. Like, it's already been a comic for a while. But the time they made it was the perfect time of okay, we got to start making fun of this shit because like there's too much of it. It's all everyone's talking about. We need to put it on its head a bit. And they do it successfully because now it's one of the few like superhero things I want to watch now because the formula is changed.
Yep.
But then it gets to a point to where all of a sudden that, like Invincible is another kind of something like the Boys, where it's just brutality.
You've got Jupiter's Legacy. So
Yes,
you've got all these
which
kind of.
also has been around for a while in comics, like just like Invincible.
I'm mad that Jupiter's Legacy on Netflix didn't get picked up for a second season.
Yeah. The comic was great, and I thought the show was
okay.
pretty good. Yeah, but they like all of a sudden that is going to become something that gets saturated. The subjugation of superhero stories, the traditional ones, all of a sudden it's going to become something that's everywhere. And then at what point, like, what do you do after that? Like, do you start to just turn it into comedy or
Right, like satire.
Yeah. Like,
I mean, I guess, yeah. I don't know. We would have to look more into that. That's just an idea I've heard of that, like, you know, you get your certain type, like a Western film or something, but then you get to a point where it starts to change. Because it kind of has to, almost.
Demonic comic book film that is kind of, you know, a guy trying to fight to never have to return to this dystopic society, as be like Constantine, because he'd been to hell. And once you go to hell, you've witnessed what time is like if it ceases to progress forward, and it's the moment of your death, and then everything starts to literally unleash hell. And that is what your reality is from then forth if you go to hell. So he escapes that, and he's forever trying to fight on the side of good, heavy quotations, you know? And I think that's a really good kind of, you know, trying to escape that dystopia and know what can cause it for you in a spiritual sense on there. And he's also getting another movie as well to play Constantine in, and I'm very excited for that.
Well, along those same lines, you get, I'm not even going to talk about the movie because it's such dreck. You get the novel by Stephen King or Richard Bachman, same person, The Running Man, because you have the story of this guy. He's got no money. He's got this drug addiction, but there's this game that I can go to this TV studio and sign up there to play this game, and I get this sum of money that is big enough that I no longer have a criminal record. I can have everything I could possibly ever want, and life will be just great for me. The risk is there are people hunting me while I'm trying to do this thing to where I can die. There's a real chance I can die. And once I sign up, there's no way out of this thing.
Squid Game kind of.
Squid Game very similar.
But yet predating Squid Game.
And this like is televised. That was a televised thing, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's something that the masses watched these people that are downtrodden and in the worst point of their life.
The masses even participated because as he was running and trying to do this thing, people, if they spotted him, could call into the hunters and say, hey, he was over here in Denver, because he's just out in the population. And so if they call and they can kind of confirm that he was there, they get money too. They get 1,000 credits or monies or whatever the unit was in the book. So everybody's involved in this.
That makes me think of The Truman Show, because everyone's watching. And The Truman Show is a different take on a dystopic story as far as like, it's one person that's experiencing this seemingly utopia, but as soon as truth is starting to be discovered, the utopic nature of it, or the dystopic nature of it, it's come to light. It's so good.
Dude, I'll watch that movie at the drop of a hat anytime.
It's so good. And tears, like the end of it, oh, geez.
Marcus, drop your hat.
Oh, you're going to watch it now? No, we're recording.
I just want to see what happened.
Okay, well, he would leave.
Well, in case I don't see you, good afternoon. Good evening
and good night. But everyone, it was the most watched television ever to exist. And it was all like focused on one man who his entire life had been fabricated by a TV studio. And his entire environment, his whole world, like the sky wasn't real. Like it was insane. Like the idea of that story is insane. And I think it stands out so much compared to a lot of other dystopic stories, because most of the time it's a group of people or, you know, a certain class setting. Like this wasn't a situation to where the guy was, you know, really low class, like hurting to survive. So a dystopia was formed around him. He was just a dude. Like he was just a baby that was chosen to, okay, you're the one that we're going to make the focus of this TV show. and seeing seeing the utopia turn to dystopic, like in that movie, is I think they did it better than most that I've ever seen.
Very cool movie.
It was just such a different take on it.
But I was wondering about the game ones, like you said. What was it called?
The Running Man?
Running Man. And there one kind of like Logan's Run. Is that a movie?
It is a movie. I know nothing about it.
Okay.
Maze Runner? That's one, right?
Yeah. Anyway,
That is one, yeah.
there's that kind of trope where it's like, oh, well, they're going to play a game that can, like, you could die, but you could win money. And it's like this dystopian thing. And they're trying to be like, have like social commentary, but yet they pick a game.
Just another one just dropped in my head. Another Bachman book, The Long Walk. It's along those lines.
There's one called like something roulette, like some horror movie.
And the Hunger Games too.
Right.
Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire.
Okay. But I wonder why they pick a game. Like
Quidditch?
even Jigsaw, like the Saw movies kind of have an element of that.
Well, yeah, you want to play a game.
Right.
Like, that's part of the whole thing.
Harry Potter, did you put your name into the Goblet of Fire?
But I wonder if they pick a game, it's because it's like, it's like they're trying for this social commentary. Maybe not Saw is not going for social commentary, but some of these others are going for this social commentary. And like when we're being socialized as young children, we are socialized through games and things like that and following the rules.
I feel like part of it is gamifying it. Like in The Long Walk, all they have to do is walk. That's the only thing. They have to stay awake and walk at a certain pace. It makes the goal seem achievable for the people involved, because as long as there's people walking until there's one person left, it keeps going. So it can go for days, weeks, months. They're just walking, man, and you're just watching this group of 100 people form their own little society within this group and function together, and then you watch it crumble at the same time.
Are they
as
all
people are dropping
Are
out.
they all walking in one direction? Like
yes, there's a route that they're taking. It's pre-plotted, and they're just walking.
Just take that Forrest Gump soundtrack. Just insert a little bit of oh, come on, brain, what's wrong with you? A little bit of Fleetwood Mac. You can go your own way.
The Barney scenario we made, that I think that lines up with this whole game idea, because it's mixing something childlike or something associated with children and happy and fun, and mixing it with unspeakable horrors of society. Like it's this horrors, sorry, but it's it's that combination of here is awful dystopic setting, and here's something lighthearted, but the stakes. It's always about the stakes that are involved with these games. Of it's life or death, but it's a game. And it can be viewed by people who aren't playing it, who their lives aren't at stake with this, so they enjoy it. And while the people involved with it, it's the worst possible thing they could be doing. But it's a game. So like you said, Tiny, like it's an achievable goal because you've played games before.
Yeah.
Just like in Squid Game, you've played
Like those were backyard
games,
recess
like
games.
red light, green light. Like that's a game.
I
where
have never
we've all
once
played.
stuck a toothpick in a sugar wafer.
I watched a movie called Would You Rather. It was a horror movie, and in the movie Would You Rather, they are kind of the Squid Game idea. They're these downtrodden people that are in need of money, and they're all invited to this dinner party, and they're invited to take part in this game for money. The winner takes all, and you have to commit to the Would You Rather game. That also includes things along the lines of, would you rather drink a sip of this wine that could be poison, or would you rather see your person to your left beaten with a cane? And you have to pick that kind of stuff. The downtrodden having to play to the games of the rich that are putting this on and watching it happen.
Yeah.
Would you rather, this man that's sitting next to you that's been beaten so many times because he's been made the option for so many people to be beaten, and they've taken it, and if he gets beaten more, he'll die. Would you rather take this razor blade and slice your pupil?
Ooh. I don't know.
Or would you want him to be beaten?
Him be beaten, please.
Yeah, please. I don't want to.
And it's stuff like that all throughout. It's dark, it's twisted, but it's also like, what are we willing to go through to get this money?
Yeah,
And just like Squid Game.
Right. Another idea, like of genre-ish within this is whenever it's not humans that are the ones involved in the dystopia, to where it's like artificial intelligence, to where the humans have their, like, they've got their lives made, man. They've got this AI doing all this stuff for them. Everything's great. But then as the AI starts to become more, self-aware, they notice like they're in a dystopia. Like there's just like when iRobot was a good one. It was a dystopia for the robots, for the AI. But those are interesting to me, to wherever it's, and most of the time it is, I think, AI that's focused on whenever it's a dystopia for a non-human thing.
Right.
I think because AI is becoming human. Like
right.
It makes,
well, and they're just trying to subvert the tropes. They're trying to do it in a way that you've never seen before.
Actually, Detroit Become Human is a video game that is a dystopia for these androids. So
there you go.
A lot of these dystopian things, especially where they're gamified, is almost a take on the Milgram experiment, which was to test the extent of humans' willingness to obey orders from an authority figure. Because it's like, if I keep telling you to do this thing, you'll do this thing, and you just watch people crumble, and they keep following orders just because they're being told in order to get money or power or wealth or what have you.
Or time off their prison sentences, like in the movie Spiderweb.
Man, you got some deep cuts on some of these movies.
Yeah.
To me, they're deep cuts just because I'm not very cultured when it comes to movies.
Did you never see that movie? Was it called Spiderweb?
Probably.
With Chris Hemsworth. He was a billionaire that owned a pharmaceutical company. That was the twist. Sorry, everybody.
Oops.
And he was subjecting these inmates to drug trials in order to shorten their sentences. So if they volunteered and took these drugs the way that his trials needed them to take these drugs, their prison sentences would be cut and short.
I watched that, and I don't think it was called Spiderweb.
It was something. I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, look it up.
I'll look it up right now.
I mean, that makes me think of the Suicide Squad. I mean, that's their whole crew. Like, they're working on doing these things they're being told to do, so that way they can lessen their sentence, or brains are gonna explode if they don't agree to do it. So they're being forced to do it with it looks like an option, but it's not really an option. And I think through all these dystopic stories, like they all follow some kind of formula, seemingly. I mean, it's a very formulated genre of media, to where you're going to follow the person that's hurting, you're going to see what it's like for those that aren't, and you're going to see what this person can do, because they're usually a part of some kind of uprising or some kind of rebels, like in Star Wars. I mean, Luke Skywalker kills millions of people on a spaceship, and that's for the good guys. Like, the good guys did that.
Yeah.
And so the bad guys are living their little utopia on their big spaceship. Hey, we're in charge of the universe. And then the rebels, the guys that are, downtrodden and things, they take it back by murdering all of them. So whenever they eventually, come in charge of stuff, it's kind of flipped on its head a little bit, to where now things are a little more utopic for those that were rebels once, and now you've got the others that are now smaller numbers trying to work their way back up, which they eventually do, and then that falls, and it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I think any of these stories, eventually that's going to happen if the story went on long enough. Like, it's a cycle. I think what you see is it ends up being a cycle, because not everyone that works their way up from these lower classes is going to have the dignity and remember what it was like being, down in the dirt. So they're not going to treat anybody with disrespect, because they've been there and they understand it, and they're going to try to help everybody. Not everyone's going to be a part of that. Even if they were a part of the uprising, it doesn't mean they're all going to be down with doing what's right.
As soon as he gets the money, he's like, "Screw you guys."
Yeah, exactly. So
absolute
that
power
I'm better than you
corrupts
now.
absolutely.
right. Yeah, and that's something that you see in all these stories.
Yeah, like the Chris Hemsworth movie Spiderhead.
It was called Spiderhead.
Yes.
Not Spiderweb.
Yes. You should watch it on the Netflix if it's still available. It's really dark, though. All these dystopic things that I watch, they end up being really dark and twisted, and it's kind of a theme in my enjoyment for watching this, because things can get bad. So let's see how real bad they can get.
Like Hobo with a Shotgun.
Not that bad.
Well, there's even you can do a lot of people have done like alternate history dystopian kind of fiction, like where, oh, well, there's this alternate history where the West did not win World War II, and that
Man in the High Castle.
exactly, and that's been done a lot too.
Yeah, like if the Night King won the Battle of Winterfell.
It would have been better than what we had.
So much better.
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
So much better.
One of our listeners sent me a picture of what everybody would look like in their kind of their white-eyed undead form.
I want to see.
That's a utopia for me. Getting
Right?
to see them win.
Right?
Yeah, but it looked really, really cool.
I can only watch so much dystopic media and play games or read them before I'm just kind of like, it's heavy stuff. I mean, whenever you're watching, because of course you're relating it to real life and how many of those things could really happen, and then it starts to cycle down this like just hellscape in your mind to where you start seeing these things and becoming a reality. Which it's good to be aware that, hey, this kind of stuff can really happen. Like, you need to be aware of it so that way you can do whatever you can to stop it from happening. But
Could be actively happening.
happening right now around you everywhere.
V
And
for Vendetta.
V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
Yep. That was a good one. And it's like, are you, like in your life, in the dystopic setting that you're in, are you going to be someone that would be somebody trying to make it better and make it not happen? Or somebody that just goes with the flow because it's easier? And that's hard to, I don't know. It's hard to imagine yourself in these roles of these characters because most of the time it's like, there's no way I would be able to do the things they're doing, but someone has to. Like in these stories, someone has to.
And that's interesting. I mean, I think that's why we write fiction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why we write these ideal kind of characters. And, because we hope that we would be strong enough to oppose those kinds of things. But chances are, not a whole lot of us would.
No. Well, it's like in D&D campaign. There's plenty of D&D campaigns that there's a dystopic situation going on, and you're a part of this adventure group that's going to do whatever you can to make it better and make it right. And you get to use those best parts of yourself in a setting to where you're not in danger. And it's like, okay, here's what I would do if I had the guts and the ability to do it. And I would help. But you go back into your real life and your real self, and it's like, there is no way in hell
I can't get fired.
that I could do this. Yeah, exactly. I've got to play my part because, I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it. But it's like, do what you can. But man, these heroes and these stories, that's why we consume it, because it just feels good to know that somebody can make a difference in the dystopia. And
any good fiction teaches us about ourselves too.
yeah.
And so just watching a character have to go through these moral dilemmas, of course, I mean, like most of the time when we are enjoying a movie, it's because we're kind of empathizing and picturing ourselves in that role.
Right.
So I think, that's why we like fiction, basically.
Yeah.
I think our show is the closest to a utopia that I think I'll ever get as far as a podcast goes. And I hope it wasn't dystopic for you all listening on Spotify and iTunes and Good Pods and blah, blah, blah. And wherever you're at, please give us 5 stars, because that is a utopic feeling whenever I look on there and I see like 17 reviews on Good Pods and they're all 5 stars, and that feels good. And you can write something about it. If you hate us, tell everyone why you hate us, but give us 5 stars. That's all that really matters. And then go on Redbubble or Teespring and spend money on things that involve us with them, and give us money. Give us money in buying things that have us on it
And stuffs.
and stuff.
And if your dystopic future has something to do with Mean Gene giving you a whooping,
He will.
and you just know that he's there to give you a whooping, and you're just worried about it, and you just don't know what you need to do to escape the wrath of Mean Gene, talk about it. Get on our Instagram, our Facebook, or our Twitter by looking up at Nerd Grapevine. You can donate a little bit to the cause, get a shiny holographic sticker with the Nerd at the Grapevine logo on there, and be able to unlock future content and stuff that we might, just decide, we're going to do this, and we're going to let these people have it first. You can get on Patreon, look up Nerd Grapevine, and donate a little bit and have access to all that. And, if you want to put on the accent and you want to speak like him, just don't do it to some random person, because they're not going to understand why Mean Gene's going to give them a whooping, and it's going to cause them to have a little bit of...
If I had a Grandpa Chip, I would not throw his war medals off a bridge, but I do know that I'm sitting in a dystopia of soon-to-be dirty pee pants if this goes on much longer. But you can find us on Discord. There is a link in our description. You can talk to us. We can play games. We can send memes. It's a really great time. People get on there and get involved. Just do it. Don't ask any questions. Just do it. We're on there live, uncut, uncensored, and irrevocably circumcised.
So Billy was getting beat up because he wouldn't clean up. And he got evaporated out of reality by the Overlord Barney. And Tiny, he gives you what was in his pocket before he is eviscerated.
Were they grapes?
They were grapes. What are you going to do with them?
Okay, I would take these grapes because I assume that they're roughly hand-sized at this point, and I would go up to this evil Barney, and I would take one of those grapes and then start shoving it through his mouth and down his throat as far as my arm can go, and then proceed to follow it with my shoulder and go even farther until I force that grape outside of the back of his body, eliminating this dystopian Barney, thus saving the world.
But then you fall into Barney and you become Barney. This is how he does it, Tiny.
And,
what have you done?
I didn't know.
What have you done? He's purple.
Didn't mean to play
of course
into
it's
it.
great.
And alone on the ground, you see one remaining grape as Tiny morphs into your now dominant lord.